Donovan Clingan was one of, if not the most important piece in UConn's second straight national title run, building on what was an impactful freshman year in a bigger role and becoming a legitimate lottery prospect in the process. At a listed 7'2", 280 with a 7'7" wingspan, Clingan will be one of the biggest players in the NBA immediately and will look to bring his elite defensive qualities as a rim protector and drop defender, along with his ability to finish plays offensively, to the next level. Now, there are still questions in his overall offensive upside and some of his versatility and conditioning and health, but outside of that, Clingan has a clear projectable NBA role, and that alone has boosted his appeal in a class with a lot of uncertainties. Clingan was one of the most impactful defensive bigs we've seen recently as the anchor of one of the top defenses in the country, and as a prospect is where the majority of his appeal lies, specifically in his ability to protect the rim. He averaged 2.5 blocks a game with a block percentage over 11, but with Clingan on the floor, opponents shot just 43% at the rim via Hoop Explorer, which is an exceptional mark rivaled by very few at all, as you can see. Of course, most guys don't get to play on a back-to-back champion caliber team, but he was far and away the catalyst for what they did on this end of the floor. His combination of size, feel, and positioning are a big part of what make him a high-level rim protector. He's able to both block shots from numerous positions on the floor, help side or other, but also change and influence many more beyond what could show up in the stat sheet. And one of the more important developments for him this year was his ability to contest without fouling. That was a bit of an issue for him in year one, and he did a better job of staying vertical, but also avoiding bodies and having a good feel for himself and just not getting too far outside of that. There will probably be an adjustment there in the NBA to an extent, just given the skill level and how they call the game, but it was a necessary development to see from him. And related to that in a way, and also very important in itself, he has good feel for when to sell out for contests and when to maintain position in order to finish possessions on the glass, which is paramount for that back line of a defense.
Good heel inbound, quickly cutting inside. In traffic, Clingan again.
Their set or third look.
Maybe Mitchell alerted that little
travel, but he kept his feet right there. Beautifully done. And now off the lean in and bump DJ.
Good job by Solomon Ball. Good cut by Watson. Misses the runner.
Brooks. Ooh, that would have been huge.
Now, what's probably Clingan's most intriguing or even the most dominant aspect of his game is his pick and roll defense. He's at his best in drop and he has great positioning there, the ability to stay solid and not bite on shiftier creators. He moves his hips well enough to keep things in front and does a pretty good job of recovering back into plays. And it makes him someone that's difficult for teams to score on, especially when matched with a good point of attack defender. Now, the thing that makes him a little different than some other bigs his size is he is capable of playing at least close to the level of the screen and not getting taken advantage of versus more adept pull-up and perimeter threats. He's still primarily going to drop back and protect the rim because that's where he's at his best, and he still doesn't have the quickest feet, but being able to close some of these gaps at his size is a big part of what makes him tough to deal with. There were just so many possessions where Clingan deterred players from the rim, changed shots, and forced decisions to be made, and his impact went far beyond the stat sheet.
From the start that he got off to in the first, Clingan deflects out like a good drop. You got it.
It's at Shireman.
good field.
Davis wants Clingan on the kick to the corner and
It's defense. Shireman.
so Samson Johnson did pick up his personal foul. He's off the floor. Clingan is back. It doesn't appear
From downtown. Now you're not as loose if you're connected either. But out of rhythm, you're thinking. Get it back from Hunger. Bowie floats it up. Another block.
About that, no. Alert.
Alexander. What's
Always ready to resist. This is his game.
Davis.
And then in the post, he allowed opponents to shoot just 25%, and up until he saw Zach Edey in the championship where Edey shot 15 times on post-ups in that game, teams rarely even tried him. I think Clingan can still get a little stronger in his base and stay honest, but he's the type of big you won't have to worry about getting taken advantage of on the interior by most. While he's not the most versatile modern big, he has the pieces of a defensive anchor, and one that almost all the NBA's best teams have in some capacity.
Against Clingan, and Clingan. Company. Very relaxed, looking forward to today's matchup.
Now offensively, while Clingan isn't the most advanced, he provides solid upside as a play finisher and pick and roll partner in the NBA. He's been efficient over his career, right at about 70% at the rim, showing off his great hands, movement ability at his size, and what might be the best piece in his screening. He did a good job of opening up lanes and grew in terms of rescreens and getting to certain angles. It was an underrated element of this UConn offense and should be even more valuable at the next level as he continues to grow as a pick and roll partner. Now he isn't the quickest as a roller, but the footwork is solid enough and he can get from point A to point B on time and occasionally finish lobs when that runway is there.
Screens, he'll rescreen. There's the roll.
UConn by 5.
Title, including last year. Clingan very active, gives bumps, gets this little drop
Outside game. Remember, Adama Sanogo last year was so dominant on the inside with his footwork for UConn. Bounce pass to Clingan.
Nice, no luck.
He's also able to expose mismatches in the post regularly and took advantage of those running a small 5-man, using seals and early duckings in transition, and he was pretty aggressive there. Now, he's not someone that you're necessarily running things for, but it's at least there in some capacity. He's also solid on the offensive glass and should provide value there, just using his size and jostling for a position near the rim. We'll address what his ceiling ultimately is offensively and how that impacts the team because it is key, but he does all of this at a decent level and it should give him a clear avenue to an offensive niche.
His first career start on Tuesday. Clingan, drop step, puts it in.
Great job by Davis, sticking to Newton, who drives.
But he made that.
Castle working past goal. Clingan to clean it up.
Stepping into a three is Caravan. Clingan the rebound, surrounded.
Newton, shake it, but missed it. Rebound. Clingan powers in with the left hand.
One of the more interesting parts of Clingan's offensive game is actually his passing. Now, he probably won't ever command the type of attention offensively to be a legit playmaker or a hub, but he definitely has the ability to fit into a number of important actions. He limited turnovers at a high level, and he should be able to keep an offense flowing, especially when you combine it with his screening ability. He was a beneficiary of playing in this UConn offense with great designs off the ball, so his job wasn't the most complicated, but there's still a lot to like in where he made his reads and the types of passes that he threw. He's capable of running DHOs, taking a couple dribbles for side-to-side actions or NBA delay looks. He operated out of the high post and found his teammates on time and on target there, and he did an okay job of reading doubles when he was in the low post. There were also flashes of some short roll playmaking. I think it might take a few more reps and maybe years to get fully acclimated there, and he'll need to be some kind of threat once he gets the ball there, whether it's a push shot or being able to take a couple dribbles all the way to the rim. Otherwise, teams are going to scheme for that to happen a little bit more. But he made solid decisions, and depending on where he lands and how they play that primary ball handler, this could be a very important piece of his game. Low turnovers, flashes of passing versatility, and solid processing speed. It's enough to at least be comfortable with him as a release valve and in maintaining continuity, if not a little more depending on the roster context.
Clingan gets fed. Double comes opposite. What a cut!
If you have Bowie, Langborg, and Barnheiser combined for 1 of 16.
Newton, a three.
Clingan is on the wing. It's up to Newton with a three.
Most of the questions in Clingan's game revolve more around how high you take someone of his archetype and the level of offensive value that he'll provide in the league. I'm pretty certain that he'll be able to finish plays and screen and give you something as a passer, all that stuff that we just mentioned, but it's more about the things that he'll need to improve or may not have that could keep him from that next level of impact. His touch is fairly shaky, especially against contests and more physical players. He missed a lot of gimmies, and though the non-rim 2 numbers actually came out better than I expected, there was a lot of reliance on strength and long backdowns there, and not as many push shots or short roll looks that you'd like to see, so That'll be an emphasis. He's also not particularly explosive in close, and his inability to provide great vertical spacing makes him a lot easier to contest around the rim. There were several times that he had to bring it down when others finished that first opportunity or can get up a little bit quicker. And then while he's a much improved post scorer, he's probably not much more than a mismatch guy given his methodical nature and lack of great counters. Now again, it's less about if he can make an impact offensively. I believe that he will, and in the right situation he could actually pop, but it's more about how much that becomes more important, particularly when we get into convos in the highest parts of the draft.
Here's Clingan. Oh, baby hook goes for Donovan.
There's a tight ball screen here. A nice pocket pass.
Another one. Clingan finishes.
Screen. Clingan. Caravan takes the baseline. Clingan. Yes.
One of the more immediate needs for improvement comes from the free throw line, where Clingan shot just 58% this year and 52% as a freshman. The mechanics aren't bad, so it could be conditioning related, but whatever it is, sub 60% from the line as a big is pretty self-explanatory. He did get better over the course of the year, which is positive, but he'll need to improve given his role on the interior. Now there's also been talk about him having some untapped three-point shooting ability and knocking them down in practice, and I actually thought that he might shoot more this year, but at this point I wouldn't really expect it being part of his NBA role. I wouldn't rule it out completely just because the right situation may want to pour into that, but from what we've seen, it'd be a pretty big development and not something that you'd want to bet on. The biggest issues for Clingan defensively will come from his foot speed and general versatility. Now he is a very good mover for anyone near his size and routinely surprised in that aspect. Rarely got blown by cleanly at this level, but teams are going to do what they can to pull him away from the bucket and get him into space to attack in the NBA, and I think pick and pop threats will also be pretty tough for him to deal with early. The times that he did have to cover a little more ground and close out or really sell out to get back to the rim, he was more prone to fouls and mistakes, and against NBA level creators I think there will be an adjustment, and this could pose the biggest risk to him finishing games. He's also not the type of athlete that's eliminating a lot of vertical spacing angles on the backpedal or retreat. He makes up for it with positioning and sheer size, but at the NBA level, this and just being tasked with moving around more, I think could stand out.
Going back to last year by double digits. And for three. Another one.
With your feet to the baseline, you better be saying to me one way or the other. If not, I go anywhere I want.
They let Ware shoot another three. Stop Connecticut again. The alley-oop, perfect pass. Clingan with it.
Gillis a good passer and pick and pop.
Smith upstairs.
So you have to point and talk and make sure your teammates hear you defensively.
There it is. 2-run for UConn. Estrada, lob it up. Knock away by Clingan.
You got to tag him. He's shooting 39% from the three-point line.
Alley-oop, and Clingan went up with him.
In finishing up, some bigger picture questions about Clingan's conditioning and longer term health will factor in for teams. I obviously can't speak to this more than on a surface level, but someone who played just 22.5 minutes this year and 13 as a freshman will have questions to answer and the load that he can carry minutes wise. On top of that, he's dealt with a couple of right foot strains that have kept him out for multiple weeks at a time in the last 8 or so months, so teams will surely want to assess the risk given his size and the history that's there with feet and players of his stature.
Clingan on top. Cutting his Spencer. Here's Clingan.
Transferred from East Carolina in Greenville. And there's a block by Clingan against DiGazzaro. Second chance.
As we've mentioned, Clingan's primary NBA value is going to come from his rim protection and ability to anchor a defense at the 5. From there, just being a high-level screener, finishing plays at the rim, and being a positive passer give him a fairly high floor as a player. I think he could get into all defense convos as a leader of a top defense and get into that high-level starter to borderline all-star range in terms of impact. Anywhere from the top 5 into the late lottery feels like the range for him. Memphis is the best fit to me, given he brings a lot of what they need alongside Jaren, and then their playmakers would make it paradise level simple for him offensively. And then I think teams like Chicago, Atlanta, and Charlotte could all use him as a building block, and maybe OKC if that's where they want to take their front court rotation. I don't know if there's a comparison that's great on both ends. Hopefully you can see how Clingan is unique through the rest of the report we've done, but I like Jakob Poeltl as the best reference. I think Walker Kessler makes some sense, and then defense only, Clingan reminded me a lot of Brook Lopez, and I think his peak there would be something to strive for. Donovan Clingan's combination of high-level rim protection and upside to finish plays at the rim give him a clear path to make an impact at the NBA level. With this class not having the most enticing options in terms of creation or star power, you could argue some of the concerns in his offense don't mean as much as they ordinarily might. But even with that in mind, he brings value in one of the more important pieces of winning basketball and should be taken fairly high because of it.